All right, so how's everyone doing? Good?
Pretty good.
Awesome. All right, so let me first do an introduction. So my name is Ivo Yan, and I am a student as you are, and I'm fourth year computer science students here. And so I'm pretty much also learning with you guys. So if you have any question, just raise your hand. Okay? Sounds good. Now, so welcome to ECS 198F, which is section 3. This is our stuff with Swift UI. So let's first talk about what kind of topics we're gonna cover in this lecture. So first of all, is basic syntax and usage of Swift. So Swift is a de facto programming language for the iOS platform. And in this class, you're gonna learn how to use Swift, so you don't have to learn it on yourself. And we're gonna cover about Swift UI, which is a technology Apple released in recent years to developer or creating user interface for the iOS app or other Apple's platform. And yeah, and we also gonna learn some state management in Swift UI and some advanced Swift features like closure, high order functions, property wrapper, and all kind of stuff. So if you don't understand this kind of concepts, it's totally fine. We're gonna cover this later, okay? Now, so what's Swift UI? So Swift UI is introduced by Apple along with iOS 13, so which is 2 years ago, I believe. It's 3 years ago almost. And it's a new way of building user interface for app on the Apple's platform. Now, why we want to use Swift UI? Because it built with Swift and used as Swift, because the entire syntax of Swift UI is just like the Swift. If you know how to use Swift, if you know how to use the syntax of Swift, you already know how to use Swift UI. So that's convenient for you. Now there's the most important question is why we choose to use Swift UI. First, it's a feature. So Apple released it to replace the old way to doing UI, which is storyboard. Anyone of you have heard about storyboard before? Okay, anyway, the storyboard is pretty old technology, and the Swift UI is the new one, and it's a future. Also, Swift UI is across all Apple's platforms. Even though the entire class is gonna majorly focus on the building iOS app, but as long as you know how to program in Swift UI, how to doing user interface in Swift UI, you can do lots of stuff on other platforms like tvOS, watchOS, and even also macOS. Also, it's really easy to start with one thing called declarative UI programming. So do you guys know what's the difference between this thing called declarative programming or imperative programming before? So essentially, when you say something like declarative programming, it means you just give a simple instruction to the compiler or to the computer. For example, if I just want a cup of coffee, and the computer or the machine gonna kind of trying to guess what you want for you, and it's really easy to start. But there's another opposite thing called imperative programming, which is essentially what we do in our daily life with C++ or kind of stuff, where you have to specify exactly what you want. In that case, it can get pretty complicated, right? So it's really easy to start. And also it's really easy to apply animations, which is really cool in the iOS world, because for the Apple products, you got lots of animation stuff. That's really cool. And there's also lots of more stuff we're gonna cover later. Now, there's some difference between the ECS 189E, which offered by Professor Samuel King before. So, have you guys took ECS 189 before or heard of that? Okay, so that one is also iOS programming course, but the difference is pretty big between these two courses. So, in the old one, we focus on the the old stuff, the old technology, and in this course we're gonna move our focus to all new things. So like Apple's latest APIs and latest technology, also latest syntax for Swift. And yeah, as I mentioned before, we're gonna use Swift UI instead of storyboard. And in this class, we're gonna build a real to-do app together, okay, throughout this quarter. So all the lecture and assignments, including your final group project, gonna be project-based. And all technologies or techniques, ideas, gonna be illustrated in the real live coding demos. Actually, I can show you guys about what we build. There we go. This is okay. Is that visible to you guys? Yeah. Okay. So this is what we're gonna build in this quarter. This is essentially a to-do app, and with some awesome animations, which come with our platform, and you can do like this cool circular thing, progress bar kind of thing. Okay, you can check all these to-dos, and you can mark the entire thing. And you can also learn how to use using the RESTful API to pull some information from the web, like even the images, and also animations. Lots of animations here. Now let's go back to the slides. There are some basic information we can find for this course, like course info and logistics. All the slides gonna be posted to the canvas after this class, so you can use these links pretty easily. And for the discussion board, we're gonna use two things. First is Discord, and you can see there's a joining invitation link here. And the reason why we choose to use Discord because it's really easy to communicate with each other, okay? And it's really easy to make a quick reply, but it's not in a threaded format. So why we also use the GitHub discussion, because it's a format in a threaded communication. And it's really easy for you guys to find the answers or search for questions, okay? Now, this is prerequisite for this course. The ECS 130, the ECS 36B and 32B is required for this class, because well, this class is designed to be for beginners of iOS programming, but it also assumes you already know some basic stuff for object-oriented programming, okay? But the ECS 150 and the ECS 140A, which are corresponding to a operating system and programming language, are also recommended. But it's okay if you don't know this concept, but if you know, it's gonna help you to comprehend all these course materials more quickly, okay? And also, you have to be comfortable with GitHub and Git. Okay, before we move on, any questions? Anything? Awesome. Now, so let's talk about device requirements. So you don't need a physical iPhone or any iOS device, because we're gonna use simulator for your assignments, and your assignments also gonna be tested on the simulator. It's not like in a physical iPhone. But you do need a Mac device to run Xcode, which is the IDE for the iOS programming, okay? So if you don't personally own a Mac device, it's okay. So you can use CSF device, and you can see the instruction is here. And there's several kind of software requirements or installation you have to do before you actually programming for the iOS app. But all these requirements gonna be listed in the assignment 0, which is released on this Thursday, I believe. And now there's some content info. So for this course, we have 2 tutors. First is Yang Huo. He is not here today, but Ivan Huang is here.
Hello,
Just say
everyone.
hello. All right. And Professor Nina Manta is the supervisor for this class. but she doesn't directly run this course. So if you have any question like regarding this course, logistic or assignments, everything, just ask me or tutors. Don't contact Professor Manta regarding course unless it's absolutely necessary. Okay. Now we have office hours and tutor sessions. You can find the info here or on syllabus. Now there are some important notes. So this is 2-unit course and it's a PMP course. You can only take it as PMP, okay? So for the IELTS programming, actually, it cannot be covered on the 2 units, to be honest. Actually, for every software engineering course, it's not gonna happen if you just do 2-unit course. But that's what department can provide. So I cut down lots of stuff for this course and make it to a 2-unit course. But if you do want to dive into more details about the IELTS world, it's okay. I provide weekly optional materials for you guys to kind of learn more stuff about the IELTS. But if you just take the course, just trying to get some basic concept about this, it's okay. It's just 2-unit course and with corresponding workload. Also, we have per lecture summary document, which is compiled by tutors, and they all will be uploaded to Canvas after every lecture, including the slides, okay? Now let's talk about grade breakdown. So you will have a introductory assignments, which essentially prepare you to set up your local development environment. And it's assignment 0, which is released on this Thursday, okay? And we also have 4 assignments. They are all project-based, and they are primarily related to the building parts of our to-do apps. Like, for example, you can sometimes ask to creating a customized view or add some additional feature into the app. And also, you have 1 week to finish each assignment. So all these assignments gonna be relatively easy to complete. It won't take you too much time. So you got 1 week to finish each one. And for the final project, it's a group project. And you're gonna do a presentation with live demo, and you're gonna submit your code as a group. And also, you're gonna submit a peer review to your group members. Your group project comes with 3 to 5 people, and we will give several ideas, but you can also make your own. Okay. So this is a little bit detailed version about this final project. So the presentation and live demo happening on the last lecture day of this course, which is Thursday, June 2nd. And you will start your final project from week 7. And we got 10 weeks, I believe. So you'll have 4 weeks to finish, including the final week, okay? And you must form a group of 3 to 5 people. You cannot do that alone, okay? And the code must be submitted by the deadline, including the group evaluation, okay? And the more details are gonna be available in week 5 or 6. We're gonna release the prompts or how you submit your own ideas, all these details. Now, before we move on, any questions? All set? Awesome. Now let's just dive into the Xcode. So you're gonna install the Xcode or other required stuff according to the assignment 0. But here, I assume you already have the Xcode. Now you can open that. Let me put that to the other screen. There we go. Is that visible to all of you? Okay, so this is Xcode. And when you open this up, this is the first welcome screen you're gonna see. And you can create a new Xcode project, or if you have a link for a GitHub repository, you can just clone or you can just open existing one. Here we're gonna create a new one, and in this screen, make sure you select the else one instead of the multi-platform. And under the application tab, you're gonna select the app. Okay. Now we click on the next. So for the product name, just name whatever you want. Maybe in this case we can do like to do app, to do maybe Swift UI. And for the theme, you can just go with none, okay? For the organization identifier, there's no rule about like how to create one, but essentially it's just a unique identifier for like the Apple or other developer to uniquely identify your project. But by convention, it usually comes with the reverse order of your like personal website or any kind of domain you have. For example, if I have a personal website with www.ybyn.com, right? And I usually put that in a reverse order.
Professor,
Mm-hmm.
are you recording this part?
Yeah, I believe so.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. By the way, I just instructor, student instructor. So just like you. Also, be sure to select the Swift UI under the interface section. We not go with storyboard, and the language we don't go with Swift instead of the. Okay, you cannot select the Objective-C here, so go with Swift. You can leave these two options unchecked. We're not gonna cover these two here. Then we click on the next. Okay. Here, you can select where you want to place your project. Okay, in this case, I'm going to put that under this folder. If you're not familiar with Git, it's okay, just leave this unchecked. Okay, now you click on the create. There you go. So this is the template the Xcode created for you, which is kind of blank app for your for you to start. And like for example, if you want to run your project, it's pretty easy. There's a play button here. Oh, can you guys see that? And you can click on the play button, and you will launch the simulator and run your app in your simulator. And for how to select your simulator, you can check this bar. There's a iPod Touch here. You can click on this, and there are a list of devices you can choose. I'm gonna go with iOS 13 Pro. Okay, now I can click on the play button, and you will do the job for compilation. Give it a second. Yeah, it's just a blank project with a hello world. Okay, that's how you run your code. Now, let's see. Let's talk a little bit about how to use the Xcode, okay? So, as you can see, this is the main user interface for the Xcode. And on the left, you can see there's a panel. We usually call it as Navigator Panel. And in the Navigator panel, we have lots of options to choose. For example, the first one or the default one is Project Navigator, where you can see lots of files or like different files under your project structure. And there's another important thing is this search button, where you can search all this, like you can search different like text in your project. Another thing is this one is called Issue Navigator. If your compilation comes with lots of like warnings or issues, it's gonna show up here. Okay. Now this one is Debug Panel, and when you actually hit some breakpoint, I'm gonna show all this like stack here to let you to trace back. And this one is breakpoint view. For you to create a breakpoint, you have to click on the line number here, Just one click, you can see issue up here. Yep.
Could you change your theme? It's kind of dark to see.
Okay.
Themes
Let me
like
see.
a lighter theme.
Let me try one. Maybe light one.
Okay.
It's better.
So
Maybe you
thinking
can
of the
change
panel
it.
on the left.
Oh, I don't think it's possible.
You can change the system setting.
Oh yeah, I can go with light mode.
Yeah.
Better? Oh, wait a second. The font is too small. Is that okay? Okay. Okay, so that's how you create a breakpoint, and you can check your breakpoint here. By disable your breakpoint, you just, click again on this. It's disabled, but it's not necessarily remove this breakpoint. If you want to remove that, you have to drag and drop, or you can just right-click on this. There's one called delete breakpoint. Okay, that's how you delete a breakpoint. Now let's move on to the right, which we usually call this as property panel. So for the property panel, it just lists all this property of your selected file or your selected view or structure. For example, if I click on this, you can also see a quick help, which basically bring up the documentation for your code selected. Like in this case, I select this thing called content view. You can see there is some information about this struct, this content view stuff. Okay. Now we can also minimize that if you don't want that. Okay. Also, there's one convenient thing come with Xcode, come with the new Xcode, which is the preview panel. So you can see on the right side, there's a preview panel which is disabled right now. You can actually just click on the resume, and it brings up a simulator inside your Xcode, and it's updated on the runtime. So you don't have to, rebuild your program manually to see the changes. You can see all the changes on the preview panel. Okay. Now let's move on to the file structure. Let's take a look at what kind of files our Xcode created for us. So for this one, this is the main entry point for our app, and it comes with this thing. We might not actually talk about that in this course, but essentially it just means this is entry point of your program, your app. And in this one, we actually call a view, which is called content view. And you can see the detail of content view right here. So essentially just use another view, create somewhere else. Okay. Now in the content view, this is the view we already see in our simulator. Okay. Now for the content view, you can see this struct called content view. This is corresponding to the view we can see on the right. And for this preview thing, essentially create the preview panel. Okay, if you just comment out this thing, you can see the preview panel goes away, right? So this thing, when you programming your program, if you don't want a preview panel, you can just comment out this code. Okay, it's totally fine. Now let's take a look at about this thing. This is called assets. Essentially, this is the central place where you place all your assets, like your color, your like image you're gonna use in your project. That's where you place all the assets. And you can leave this preview content, like you can just leave here. We won't talk too much about that. That's a basic structure of the default template file. Okay. Now there's some shortcut you're gonna use quite frequently, I believe, in the Xcode, which can bring up lots of useful information. For example, like help panel or documentation. Okay, so first thing is how to pull out like quick actions, which can have like a list of actions which you can do quickly. You can do this with holding command key. Can you guys see on the button the key caster to show what kind of key I'm pressing right now? Right, it's a command key. And by holding command key, you can see the selection view actually changed. Okay, it changed to this thing. And we click on, for example, I click on the content view, right? You pull up lots of quick actions. You can just jump to definition. You can, add it in the scope, or lots of different things you can do. Also, there's another thing. You can pull out a quick help. Actually, it's right here. You can see, show quick help. And the shortcut is by holding the option key. See, the option key. And click on the content view. You bring up a documentation or the help view. Oh, this help view is like identical to this one you see right here. Okay? And just holding option key, click on this. This is summary. Another thing is quick jump, which you have to hold in both control and command. Okay? Control and command, you can just jump to any location you want. But in this case, just jump to the, this place because it's declared right here. Okay? Now, let's talk about another thing. So there's one thing called Xcode Playground, which is essentially a place you can test and run your Swift code quickly and easily. So let me show you how to create a Xcode Playground. So go to the file section. There's a new one you call Playground. Click on this one. And then you're going to go with a blank with iOS template. Just give it a name. Maybe this. Okay. I'm going to call it as create variable. Here we go. This is the view of the Xcode Playground. And here you can see there's a little play button here, which when you click on this, it can help you to run the code until the line number you specified. Okay. In this case, you can see there's a output here, which indicates what kind of output this statement gives. For example, in this case, the greeting is hello playground, and you can see right here. Now, let's talk about some basic syntax of Swift, like how to create variables and how to use constant variables and mutable variables. So in this case, when we declare a variable with var is a keyword in Swift, essentially create a variable or mutable variable here. In this case, you can just assign a different value. For example, just say hello, and you can use this play button to run this thing. And this is way quicker than the entire Xcode environment here. So that's why you usually want to use the Xcode Playground to test around your code and see like the difference, see the changes. Now, how about how to create a constant variable? By creating a constant variable, we use the let keyword here. And for example, I can do maybe my const, call it my const. And this is the name of your variable, as you probably already see in other languages. This is your variable name with a sign symbol, and maybe see my const here. Okay, I can just run this. Okay, in this case, this is constant. So you cannot actually just assign other values once it's assigned before. But maybe I can do changed. I can try to run this again. And you can see it gives an error, says cannot assign a value to let constant because it's a constant, as the name suggests. Now, there's an important thing about the type in the Swift. You have to know the Swift is strongly typed and type-safe language. So every variable in the Swift has a type. But as you can see here, you don't see any type annotation here because the compiler actually inferred that for you. So for example, the greeting is a string, right? But like you don't see any type indicates string because compiler say, okay, you do this declaration, it's a string literal, it has to be a string, right? But how do you actually check about the type of this this variable? Like compiler do the job for you, but you don't know whether it do the job right? Again, you can pull out the quick help, which by holding the command key, sorry, it's actually option key. By holding option key, click on the greeting one, you can see the type here. The type comes after the variable name and separated by a colon. It says it's a string. Okay, string is a basic type in the Swift. In this case, sometimes you may want to actually tell the compiler what kind of type we are creating. For example, okay, you can do the string. You can do the type annotation by doing this colon thing as say string. In this case, you explicitly tell compiler the greeting variable has to be a string type. And if you do something else, like you can give a 1 to it. Okay. If you give a 1 to it, you can see there's a compilation error. It says cannot convert the value of type int to specific type string. That's how you ensure every variable has a type and is type safe. Okay. Let's go back to the old one. Okay. Now this is how you create a string. And there's other basic types in Swift like int. You can do a int, for example, my int with annotation like int, for example, like 1. You can also do var my double. See, by doing like this, and also you can do like float. Actually, there's lots of types in Swift, and when we like talk about this type system later, you're gonna see lots of other types in the Swift. All this type I show here is just the basic type of Swift. Okay, and also you can definitely do Boolean. You can do the annotation with bool, and by declaring Boolean literal, you can just say true or false. Okay, and also you can see about here. For all the 4 variables, I declare with a type annotation. We call this as type annotation. We annotate the type of this variable. And for some case, the compiler actually can tell which type you actually are creating. For example, this one, we are creating a Boolean, right? I can, again, just remove this annotation. And again, I holding option key, check the type of this variable. It says it's a Boolean value because the compiler do the job for us. Okay, but like for example, if you want to get rid of this type here between the float and double, let's see what happened. Again, holding option key, check the my double, and say it's a double. But how about the my float? You can see again the compiler by default infer it's a double. So in this case, this is where you want to do the explicit type annotation because maybe sometimes you want it to be a float. Okay. Let's see. The next thing is about the array. So how to declare array in Swift. Again, I can do a var to declare a variable. Maybe I can do array of like int. So how to do the array annotation, array type annotation for the array? We use this square bracket. It indicates it's an array, and inside this bracket I can say like, because I want to store integers, right? I can say int, which means array, and each elements in this array is an integer. And I can give a initializer, which means it's an empty array here. Okay, but there's also lots of different ways to declare an array in a Swift. For example, I can also do some syntax like this. So first, I use this type annotation after the assign symbol, right? But it's not valid, it's just a type annotation. I can call constructor on this with a bracket behind this, okay? And this is another way to declare a array of something. It's an integer. There we go. There's also you can create a array with some default values. For example, I can say array of int 3 value with 1, 2, like 3, separate. Each element is separated by a comma. Okay, you can do things like this. Again, let's check about this type because we didn't do any type annotation to here. Let's holding the option key and click on this. You can see yes, the compiler infer the type for us. It's an array of integers. Okay, of course you can just also explicitly tell compiler what kind of type it is by doing this, but like for the most of the time you can just get rid of that. Okay. Now how about dictionary? So let's try to do something with dictionary. Let's call a var dictionary of int and string. We're gonna create a dictionary with integer as a key, but the string as a value. We can do the type annotation like int colon and string. Here we go. That's the syntax for creating a dictionary. And the type annotation can be done like this. So it's still, again, it's still a square bracket. But the first thing indicates before the column indicates the type you want to use for the key, which in this case we are using the integer for the key. And the string indicates what kind of value we're going to store in our dictionary. Okay, that's how we do the dictionary. Again, you can also create dictionary with default or initialized value. I can do a string with values. Just like this, you can go with 1, which is a key, and there's a value separated by a comma again, which is 2. You can do 2. That's how you do dictionaries. Okay. Now this is basic types for the Swift and how you're actually gonna create your variables by using Swift syntax. Now let's go back to our project and try our how to declare a actual variable in our project. Okay, let's go to here. See this thing called content view. We already see before. Okay. In this case, you might get quite confused about all this syntax here, but don't worry about that. For now, the only thing you need to know is what kind of it looks like and how we do things. Okay, you don't have to know the fundamentals like how things compile. Behind the scene, it's totally fine. We're gonna go over all these details later. Okay, so this is a struct called content view, and after this, I can create a variable. In this case, I'm gonna do a mutable variable, which we can change later. For example, I can do my string again. Maybe I can call hello evil. Okay, this is how we create a variable in this thing called struct. And for the struct, we're gonna also go deeper about these details later. Also, we're gonna compare the struct versus the class in Swift. Now, so this is a new variable we just created. And you can see there's a thing called text, which is essentially just a text view here. It says hello world, and it takes a string. Okay, in this case, if we already have a string variable, right? How we actually use this string variable? It's pretty easy. You just replace this string variable with our variable name. I can see. Oh, there's another thing, because the preview panel actually uses lots of resource during compilation. So sometimes when it detects some like important changes, it can just automatically pause itself. And when it happens, you have to click on resume to tell it to run again. You can see it's already changed. But the preview panel by default is not really interactable. So you cannot interact with all this element inside this. If you want to actually run a simulator inside your Xcode, you have to click on this play button here. So for example, if I create a button inside this view, you actually cannot just click on the button and test all things out in this preview panel. Before doing that, you have to click on this play button, and you can see it's a fully runnable simulator inside this panel. That's the basic view of the Xcode. Yeah, that's about all. That's all about today, and we still got 10 minutes before Yeah.
What's the song? The declaration before view, it says song. What's the
That's called opaque type in Swift, and it's quite complex for you to understand right now. So later we're gonna talk about the type system of the Swift, and we're gonna talk about one thing called protocol. And the protocol is pretty complicated for compiler to actually compile things. And when you want to use the protocol as a type, you do the opaque type thing called sum. Essentially, dynamically dispatch a type to a compiler. But yeah, maybe if we have time, we can talk about this later in this course. But for now, you just know the syntax, and if it's runnable, it's okay for now.
Yeah, it is pretty okay.
Yeah.
It really just the t value in Java.
What?
T value in Java.
It's not generic type.
Okay.
It's not generic type. There is some key difference between generic and protocols here. And when we get to the type system, we're gonna talk a lot about all different type system Swift provides, like protocols, generic type, how do you do generic type, how to do that protocol. And the view here, as I mentioned before quite a few times, is a protocol. Actually, I can, again, holding the option key, click on this. You can see, is that too small for you guys?
Yeah, we can see that.
Okay, cool. You can see there's this thing called protocol, okay? You don't need to worry too much about that right now, but it's a protocol. And you want to use the protocol as the type. You put the sum. It says, again, this is a keyword in Swift. You put a keyword sum here. And again, the body is a variable, but you can see there it comes with a kind of function call, right? And we're going to get to that later. For now, if you want to understand this, essentially just run the code inside this and use the type or use the value it returns as the value of this variable. For example, it returns a text, and you use that as the value for the body. And also you can see we don't have the return keyword here, right? Because there are some special case in Swift. If you only have one line of code in the code block and you want to return that, you can just get rid of the return keyword. So you can put the return here. It should be valid to build. Okay, another thing is how to quickly build your project. You can use Command and B to actually quickly build your project to see whether anything broken in your project. And that's how you do that. Any question? All good? Yep.
What's Swift UI used for? Is it like just for applications in general, or games too?
Well, it's used for creating user interface, but for the game, you actually need something else because Swift UI is not optimized for the game. And when you're actually programming a game, it usually requires a game loop to render all this thing. And in Swift, there's a thing called sprite kit, I believe. But we're not going to cover the sprite kit in this class. So in this class, we're not go over the basic or the general stuff about how to do in the iOS app. But if you are really interested in the game development, you can try to learn some about the sprite kit. Yeah, actually, I guess it's spelled like sprite kit, I believe. I forgot about that actually. Anything else?
So the Swift AUI will focusing on the front end of the application.
Yeah, because Swift is used for building the user interface.
Okay.
But yeah, like let me see. Actually, in the next lecture, we're gonna go over Swift first, and then we come back to Swift UI, how to do the UI interface.
So it's appropriate to say it's like HTML, CSS, Swift UI?
Yeah, exactly. So it's like HTML, but the difference is HTML, like compared to maybe JavaScript, there are two different languages, right? And their syntax is different. But in this case, you might actually not see that right now, but the Swift UI is use the Swift syntax, and it compiles as Swift. So you can even do the if statement inside the Swift UI, which also obey the Swift syntax. So essentially, they are the exactly same language here. So it's gonna be really easy for you to pick up. Yep.
What is used for the backend?
The Swift. You mean in the app?
The server side.
Server side, it depends on you, right? If you want to build something with Python, with Flask, it's okay. If you want to build something like with JavaScript, with Node.js as dependency manager, it's okay, it's totally fine. It's kind of separate from the app development, mobile app development, right? And later you're gonna see how to actually call the API request from your backend and how to use the JSON, or maybe you use JSON in your app. As for the backend, it depends on you. Right? Anything? Okay. All right, then see you guys Thursday.